Okay, finally then, on this little introduction to biomechanics, I'm going to put a little equation up on the screen. So I'm just going to read this off of a blog I did a little while ago. And so this is basically the principles of how you improve your biomechanics. So how you improve the efficiency of your movement. So the whole point of what everything I do is to try and improve biomechanics, to improve efficiency, so therefore you reduce your injury risk and you increase performance. So this is what I mean by the equation. So if you want to improve your biomechanics, this is what you need to do. So the effect or the amount of corrective exercises. So this is the exercises that you are doing to consciously improve your posture and improve your movement. And if you add that to MFR, so that's myofascial release, which if you don't already know from other videos, is the process of massage. So either by someone else or by yourself. So the effect of the amount of corrective exercise plus MFR, if that is greater than the tension created by poor posture that you already have, inactivity or other forms of exercise or activity, or stress or whatever it is, then you get an improvement in biomechanics. So what you shouldn't confuse here is that some people say, well, I work all day, for example, I'm working on a computer all day, so they may spend like 7 or 8 hours at a desk all day. Does that mean I have to then spend 7 or 8 hours doing postural exercises to correct the problems I'm going to have? It's not quite as simple as that, but it's also not as depressing as that. So if you're sitting at a desk all day and you're kind of in this sort of position, you are stressed. There's mental stress which turns into physical stress, which then causes some sort of adaptation, and it's an adaptation that you don't want. But the physical stress isn't huge. Now if you do the simple wall breathing exercise that I show in some other videos, even the simple exercises, the ones that are static, or even some of the simple movement exercises, are far more stressful, you could say, on the body than just sitting at a desk. So you're not going to need to do as many of them. The intensity of them is much, much higher than sitting at a desk. However, if you go and, let's say you go and do some weight training, or you play a sport, maybe you play football for the weekend, and you're not really thinking about your posture, and you play 90 minutes of football running around with bad gait, bad posture, or you're bench pressing with heavy weights, then yeah, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem being able to improve your biomechanics if you're doing lots of fairly intense physical activity with bad posture and bad movement. Okay, the next part of it then is deterioration in biomechanics, and this is where most people are at. Most people are deteriorating, their posture's deteriorating, their movement's deteriorating as they age. So the effect of corrective exercise and MFR, maybe you're not doing any of it at all. If that is less than the tension created or the stress created by poor posture, inactivity and other forms of exercise, then you'll get a deterioration in biomechanics. So it says the exact opposite. And then number 3 is if the effect of the corrective exercise you do plus the MFR is equal to the tension created by poor posture and activity, other forms of exercise, then you'll see no change in the efficiency of your biomechanics and no change in your posture. So yeah, you can't expect to do a few exercises every now and then, go out and do all the activities that you were doing, and all the lifestyle habits that you did have, and expect to make meaningful changes. You may cause a slowing of the deterioration, or you may cause a halting of the deterioration, but fundamentally to make big changes in the efficiency of your biomechanics, you're going to have to make some sacrifices in some areas, and you're going to have to elevate what you're doing to try and change things. It's really as simple as that. And this is a real kicker for most people, because people are wedded to things that they really enjoy. That maybe their social life revolves around a sport they play, and even if you know what you're doing, I'll give an example for me with this one, with squash and cricket, for example, my two sports that I tend to play the most, or I did tend to play the most, there's just no way that you can really focus on what you're doing in a game of squash or in a game of cricket and then focus on doing everything in the correct technique at the same time. In cricket it may be a little bit easier, but in squash, for example, there's just no way to play a game of squash that respects biomechanics and to be able to do it in the right way. For a start, you heel strike every time you stretch out and hit a ball, and that's just that just wouldn't happen if I was following the kind of protocols that I would follow. So unfortunately, if you want to make improvements, there's going to have to be sacrifices that you're going to make, and some people are not prepared to make those, some people are. If you don't make them, you probably won't see that much improvement. Right then, so something to note then, finally, about this equation. So some of you may have been able to figure out the big problem here. So I'm talking about sacrifices that you may need to make, but think, everything that you do where you're not really focusing on where you're at with your posture and how you're moving, everything that you do is going to basically cause you to spiral into the postural position that you don't want. So it's the postural position that you're getting into. So again, most people are slightly rounded, they may be dipped on one shoulder, and so eventually if we wind the clock forward to 100 years old, you're going to be going this way. And so literally everything you do will cause this problem. So the way you're standing, the way you're walking, maybe you walk the dog, you're going to reinforce this drift into bad posture. And so if you play football, you play cricket, you do the cooking, maybe you put all your weight on one leg when you're doing the cooking, and then you do something like that when you're doing the cooking. So everything is going to go that way. So how do we make sure that if you really do want to improve your posture, you're going the right way, you're getting enough corrective forces to drive an improvement in your movement efficiency and your posture? Well, you've got to think about it a fair bit, unfortunately. So yes, the intensity of the exercises, particularly as you're working against your body in many cases, you're working against the shortening of some muscles, is going to be high, and so doing a lot of the corrective exercises is going to be useful, but also it's important to think about how you're holding yourself in space most of the time. So again, if you go out for a walk, so I walk my daughter quite a lot outside, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about what I'm doing with my shoulders and my stomach and the tilt of my pelvis. Now, you can get really obsessive about it and you could kind of stress yourself out with it, but just kind of half think about it, at least, if you can. If you can just get into the habit of half thinking about it and doing a little bit, it will make a big difference. And so it's going down a bit of a rabbit hole of what you need to do to change things, and you have to kind of think of how much you want it. And so for most people, it's not enough, and they'll just say, "I'll forget about it. I'm just going to carry on, do the things that I enjoy, improve." And if I worry about biomechanics too much, it's just going to be too much or too busy. But for many people, there's no choice, and you might find as well that in the future that you have no choice, that a lot of the things that you love doing are going to be taken away from you anyway in time, and that if you actually get on board with trying to fix it, then you may be able to compromise at some point and continue being able to enjoy your life physically, instead of ending up in the inevitable cycle of deterioration that most people have. And it tends to go something like this. For men in particular, as I'm a man, I'm going to go from a kind of quite male perspective, but you might get heavily into sport, play sport when you're younger, make friends, socialise in sport, then you start to get injuries and you can't do sport anymore, so you might take up a bit of running, and then you get injuries and you can't run anymore, so you take up cycling, then you get injuries and cycling is causing you pain, so then you stop cycling. Then you might maybe just go to the gym. Then you get injuries. Then you stop going to the gym, and then you do nothing. And then more problems come as you become inactive, and then you die. It's really, I know that's a slightly depressing way to end this video, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can make changes, but it does take some sacrifices and some fairly deep thinking and habits changed to be able to do it. But I hope that's given a reasonable overview into how I think about biomechanics, and please leave any comments if you're interested, and I'll see you next time.